This week there was a lot of discussion about different news stories. Cardinal Sarah and Pope Benedict co-authored a book, and there was a lot of discussion about that, especially on Twitter. But there is one story that got overlooked, a little bit overshadowed by the Pope Benedict and Cardinal Sarah story. And I try to post things on Twitter, so if you want to follow me on Twitter, I will post a link to my Twitter name down below. This story was about a church in Williamsburg, Virginia that was going to host an Anglican bishop ordination of a woman. The church is called St. Bede Church, and it is in the Diocese of Richmond, Virginia. On the parish website, the pastor published a letter, and he said, quote, "The pastor sought and received approval from our bishop to host this event. The bishop's only directive was to remove the Blessed Sacrament," end quote. So I'll post a link to all these articles and letters down below. So if you look at who the bishop is, it is Bishop Barry Nestout. He is a former secretary to Cardinal McCarrick. So that raises some red flags right away. National Catholic Register reached out to him for comment, and he actually encouraged the ceremony. But then, due to the public pressure and so many angry people, the Anglicans actually decided to move their bishop ceremony to a different place. I think it was a mega church. And Bishop Nestout's reaction was interesting. He said, "It is with great sadness that I have received a letter from Bishop-elect Susan Haynes stating that due to the controversy of the proposed use of St. Bede Catholic Church, she has decided to find another location for this ceremony to take place. It is with great sadness that he received a letter from a religion that was started because King Henry VIII wanted to divorce his wife." On Twitter, I found some further information about this Diocese of Richmond. It's pretty interesting. In Virginia Beach, they have a church called Holy Apostles Church, and they split the church building with the Anglicans. In 2012, there was an article posted in the Episcopal magazine called Celebrating Together, where it talked about how this church split between the Anglicans and the Catholics, and I guess they must have been doing things that were not Catholic, so they must have been celebrating their liturgies. And I say this because the bishop at the time, Bishop Francis Di Lorenzo, issued a statement that said, "Hey, Catholics, you should probably celebrate your own liturgy in conformity with the Catholic Church." But the bishop actually commended their ecumenism. But the interesting thing about this article was that the bishop was called out by none other than Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano. Vigano was passed along this information, and he sought clarification from the bishop, and the bishop was like, "Well, yeah, I should probably conform with Rome." And so he issued this directive and said, "Hey, Catholics should celebrate Catholic Masses." In 1993, there was a document titled Directory for the Application of Principles and Norms on Ecumenism. It was approved by Pope John Paul II. The pastor at St. Bede's actually quoted this document in his letter. Under point number 137, it says, "Catholic churches are consecrated or blessed buildings which have an important theological and liturgical significance for the Catholic community. They are therefore generally reserved for Catholic worship. However, if priests, ministers, or communities not in full communion with the Catholic Church do not have a place or the liturgical objects necessary for celebrating worthily their religious ceremonies, the diocesan bishop may allow them the use of a church or a Catholic building and also lend them what may be necessary for their services." This is a disgrace. This was done under Pope John Paul II, and he actually approved this nonsense. Martin Luther was a heretic, John Calvin was a heretic, King Henry VIII was a heretic, and now we're going to allow them to celebrate their ceremonies in our churches? It's an absolute disgrace to all of the martyrs who were killed because of the heresy of Protestantism. I'm not saying that Catholics shouldn't talk to Protestants. We absolutely should. What I'm saying is we shouldn't permit these ceremonies to take place in our churches. These bishops are all about dialogue with other religions, and then they're crying about why they don't have any priests and why people are leaving the Catholic Church. I wonder why. It's because you're saying all these religions are okay, everyone goes to heaven, so we don't need to worry about it. But then your donations are down, so you have to turn to government funding. It's a ridiculous cycle, and it needs to end. We have to call out these bishops whenever we see this nonsense happening.